Welcome to this month's Chapter Video Magazine. As I record this, we are 89 days from AirVenture, so it is coming up fast. I just got back from camping with some friends, taking a couple of vacation days, and seeing the Sun and Fun show. That was a solid turnout, so I'm expecting AirVenture to be, a real coming out party for everybody after we get past COVID and the vaccinations are all in place. So it should be a great time. We're really looking forward to it. The NOTAM was just released within the last week. There are some significant changes, so if you are planning to fly your own plane in to AirVenture, which I strongly encourage, it's a great experience, you definitely want to check out the NOTAM this year. Pay a little extra attention because there are some changes. Also, we have a webinar coming up, so if it's your first time or you just need a refresher, definitely tune into the webinar for tips for flying into AirVenture 2021. Now we have an exciting new contest that we just put out. It's called Pilot Your Own Adventure Contest. It's in conjunction with Flight Outfitters because we just put together an offering of EAA logoed Flight Outfitters gear. It's some pretty cool stuff. So to promote this, it's a really unique thing. The winner of this contest will get to use a teardrop camper at AirVenture in Camp Scholler, and they'll also get a whole bunch of Flight Outfitters gear to go along with it. And the way you can win this contest is you have to submit a story about a time that you had a fun, adventurous, and inspiring experience made possible by recreational flying. So if you want to enter that, June 1st, 2021 at 4 p.m. is the cutoff. And I sure would love to find out that somebody from the Chapter Network won that prize because it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I'm going to definitely be jealous, and I want to come by and hang out at the campsite if one of you guys win it. Now, the last couple of years, we've offered a special at AirVenture through a company that I've gotten to know, Chart It All. Chart It All was started by a young eagle, Trevor. He took a Young Eagles flight, became completely enamored with flying, and realized he wanted to go to an aviation college. And he kind of settled on Embry-Riddle and realized he needed to raise some funds to pay for his college. So he started this company, Chart It All, and you probably saw him at AirVenture in 2019. They're going to have a booth again this year. So we put together a little special thing for chapters. They offer a really cool apron with a sectional chart. You get to tell them your home airport. They'll put that on the apron, center it, and they'll also put your EAA Chapter number. The special for this year is $8 off, so the apron's going to be $27. And they also offered for chapters this mug special. Normally this mug's $25. It'll also be $8 off, and you can get your chapter number on the side, and again, center it around your home airport. I love this mug. I use it literally every day because it's just the right size for me. So if you like a lot of coffee, it's a good size for that. And again, you save yourself $8 on each item, and as long as you order by July 1st, you will pick it up at AirVenture and avoid shipping. So you get free pickup at their booth in Hangar C. So it's definitely a good deal, and it goes to a great cause, which is Trevor's college fund. So just a cool story around a young eagle that I wanted to share and kind of give them a little lift. Now, just this last week, we had a pretty big deal happen here at EAA, and that is the groundbreaking for our Project 21 museum expansion. We're adding 30,000 square feet to the museum, 2 primary areas that support member programming, and that's the pilot proficiency area. We're going to take the Redbirds that we use during AirVenture and have them available along with additional programming all the time in the museum. And we're also adding a Kid Venture area, again, leveraging what happens during the fly-in that's been so successful. And we're going to have a whole floor of it dedicated to Kid Venture and STEM activities and things of that nature. So we just broke ground. You'll be able to see it when you're here at AirVenture. And it should be completed by the spring of next year, 2022. And so it'll be fully operational by July of next year when you're back here at AirVenture 2022. So that's pretty cool. Big news for the organization. And looking forward to having that as part of the programming that we offer our members. Now, Young Eagles, International Young Eagles Day is coming up June 12th. And right after this, we have a message from Jimmy Graham, one of our Young Eagles co-chairmen, about the impact of the Young Eagles program. So if you haven't planned an event yet, I'd encourage your chapter to do so. Again, we're offering double Young Eagle credits in June, July, and August. So we're ramping up for AirVenture, and we can't wait to see you here in July. So start getting ready.
Good afternoon. Jimmy Graham here with the Chicago Bears and the co-chairman of Young Eagles. I'm sitting here in the Huey hangar. We're doing some maintenance before we give out our Young Eagle flights this weekend, but I just wanted to first off thank everybody for sacrificing your time and your energy into molding these young minds and hearts and showing them, how amazing aviation is and how truly life-changing it can be. Too, obviously, I hope everybody is happy and healthy through this kind of crazy year, with the vaccine out and us on the backside of it. Just wanted to encourage everybody. Coming up June 12th will be International Young Eagles Day, but leading up until then, I hope everybody, stays active with this next generation, especially, they just spent a year kind of separated from, school, some of them, and a lot of these activities that they're used to. So, what a better time than to introduce them to, this great privilege that we have in this great nation. So thank you again for all your sacrifice and, continue to mold these minds and hearts. So thank you.
Hey, I wanted to say that, in fact, point out something about the Young Eagles. He mentioned that they're going to be issuing double Young Eagle credits this year. And what that means is, I think 2 years ago, we had about $750 credit back, and that was in a normal year. If we can have a good Young Eagles turnout, we get a certain number of credits, i.e. dollars, back for every Young Eagle that we fly. So we really do want to have as many pilots and people who can help out pulling this together. We actually have people already signed up to come in and attend our Young Eagle program. So we want to make sure that we pull that off and that we get a lot of kids through if we can. So there's been some misinformation flying around, no pun intended, about our 2021 fly-in. In fact, we are having the 2021 fly-in. It's August 14th and 15th. Whoa, what happened there? Disappeared. Anyway, what has happened, just to kind of let everyone know, where did my little PowerPoint go? It disappeared. Oh, I know what happened. So anyway, from current slide, return. Our chairperson, Steve Wheat, has essentially made the decision that he's not going to be able to lead it this year. And so he stepped down. He says he's going to be a regular contributor and worker, but doesn't want to lead. So we are looking for a chairperson for the fly-in. Meanwhile, the board is pulling together, and we're going to be putting a planning meeting together in 2 weeks and to try to define kind of the scope. We think that the Stoll event is going to continue on pretty much as it has in the past. Tim Isaac is going to lead it up again, and I think he's going to be putting out some notices here in the next few days to start planning some practice sessions. Meanwhile, our fly-in event, we fully expect to have pancake breakfast. We expect to have some type of food. We're probably not going to be having forums. We're not going to be having sit-down meals per se, just because it's so complicated to still comply with CDC guidelines. And in fact, we don't know what they're going to be in August. So we're still adjusting that, but the fly-in is on. We're still going to do it. And so if you hear any information that to the contrary, please disregard that. Rich, you want to put in your plug for the newsletter?
Yes, and let's see, my story that I submitted a story for the EAA contest, and I'll probably put that in the newsletter. If anybody else has, that would be a great contribution for the newsletter. But again, any builder reports or flying stories or anything you have in pictures, please send them in, and we'll get them in the newsletter.
And I think Rich is committed that if he wins, we can all stay in his trailer with him. Is that right, Rich?
Well, they only provide 2 tickets, so.
All right. So we still have a couple of RV6 kits or partially assembled kits, and one rebuild that could be available for sale. Our other projects are sold, and Ernie's not on the line today, but if you have a kit, and I recently, I know Pat Hatfield donated an Osprey 2 to the chapter. So if you have something that you think would be interesting to be donated, please contact myself or contact Jerry or contact Ernie, and we'd love to work with you. We're going to be probably starting to think about taking new kits in that we can either complete or flip to act as proceeds for the chapter. So that's all good. And the one that's not on here is the Youth 701. That one's going to be coming up for sale as soon as we get the engine work finished. The hours are flown off of it, and we expect that plane to be in the $35,000 to $40,000 range. Is probably what it's going to go out for sale. Just that's kind of the ballpark. Upcoming programs. Today we've got Chris Pryce talking about his KR2. Next month is the Young Eagle program. July, yay, we're going to finally have our in-person meeting. That's the plan, and the focus on it, again, similar to 2 years ago, is going to be light flight, and we'll be getting some more details about what we're going to be, who's going to be speaking and what we're going to be doing. We've got some ideas there. The August meeting coincides with the fly-in, so we probably won't be having a dedicated meeting, and then we'll be back meeting in September. So that's kind of the lookout or the for the next several months. Okay, and that brings us around to our featured speaker. And I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to Jerry Pryce to do the introduction. At the same time, Chris, I'm going to make you presenter, and hopefully I'll be making... So you should have, looks like you've got it. And Jerry, you want to do the honors?
Sure. I'm happy today to have my second son, Christopher, make the presentation. A little background on the KR series of aircraft. It actually started in our family for me about 3 BC. That would be 3 years before Chris, when I bought a KR1 kit, which I subsequently decided I'd start on a KR2. And not to take too much away from his Christopher's time talking about this project, I worked on it off and on through several moves. And I can remember when Chris was quite small, him walking out to a garage that we had in Vacaville, California, which is about 2 miles from where he currently lives, and him telling me that, "Dad, I'm going to have to build this for you." Well, he did. I've still got, some KR parts hanging in my hangar, and he's got this beautiful airplane. So with that, I would also point out that unlike his dad, he actually started building this airplane when he was going through Air Force pilot training. So obviously a good manager of his time. So with that, I leave it to Chris.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
We hear you fine.
Yes.
Cool. Like Dad said, I am the second of 4 in the family. Currently, I'm a KC-10 evaluator pilot stationed back in Vacaville where Dad was. And I teach people to fly the KC-10 at the schoolhouse. Good job. While I'm not playing military, all my free time is spent building or flying airplanes. So this is my version, I call it, of a KR2. I don't think a single one is built the same or built the way that it was originally designed. So I'll talk a little bit about history and the specifications of the aircraft, and then we'll go into my build. My goal being about 30 minutes. Feel free to interrupt me with any questions. I do have the chat window open. I can answer that as well. If not, you can hold it to the end and we'll chat then. So back in 1972, Ken Rand and Stu Robinson designed the KR1 and brought it to Oshkosh. It was touted as a styrofoam airplane. Ken Rand is actually given the credit for inventing sandwich composite construction, although a lot of other people made it more popular. But so he shows up with this 325-pound little thing powered by a Volkswagen, built for $500. It was light, it was fast, and it was economical. Shortly after that, people wanted 2 seats as always, so they came up with the KR2 that you see on the bottom left, N4KR. Powered ultimately in the end by a 2100 Volkswagen. It is the only airplane that's 480 pounds. I don't think you can build one that light. But once again, it was a popular airplane. I should say that all these airplanes have a spruce and composite structure. So the lower boat fuselage is spruce with spruce spars, and then the rest is fiberglass. One thing to note from the KRs is they're very short coupled. You can see N4KR is a very short looking airplane, so they were known to be very pitchy. And unfortunately, in 1978 or 1979, we lost Ken Rand. He was flying home from Sun and Fun, actually, all the way back to Chino, California, and he encountered weather and icing and ultimately crashed and passed. The company stayed together with his wife, Jeanette, taking care of it, I think with Stu Robinson helping out a bit. But later on in the, I want to say 90s, the KR2S was designed by a builder, not from the company, and that's the one you see on the bottom right. That's the first KR2S for stretch. It was 16 inches longer than the original with an extra 14-inch aft bay and then 2 inches forward to try to help combat that pitchiness that people say the KRs have. So with that being said, here's the quote-unquote specifications that they say it has. I'll say that none of this is accurate. It's not 480 pounds. No one uses a 900-pound gross weight. Not a single KR can stall at, I want to say it was 40, go 200 miles an hour and 1,600 miles on 3.8 gallons. Each KR can probably hit one of those numbers, but not all. So in no particular build order, we'll start talking about my airplane, starting with the boat. Here is my now 12-year-old at the age of 4, sitting with an inventorying the wood kit that Dad sent me. Like he said, I was in pilot training at the time. I was stationed in Columbus, Mississippi in pilot training. Unfortunately, I broke out with some weird hives and I was down for about 6 months. So I'm getting paid to do nothing. Perfect time to build an airplane. So I finally decided I wanted to build a KR, talked to Dad, and he crated up what he had, and that's what it was. To supplement that, I had to order about 140 something feet of 5/8 spruce for the fuselage. That's what that is, and my first of many gallons of epoxy. My favorite sentence in the short plans of the KR says, "Build fuselage per drawing 1." So that one sentence gives you a full boat. This is me starting. You have to build about a 14-foot workbench. I ended up building an 8-foot and a 6-foot and screwing them together. And then you start laying out the longerons, and they only give you a couple dimensions in the plans, and then you kind of extrapolate from there. That being said, I think the only thing on my KR that is per the plans is the firewall size. Mine is an additional 14 inches longer than a KR2S, once again to help with the pitch instability problem, and then a lot of other modifications down the line. I made mine substantially wider, taller, because I'm a big person. So the KR2 is advertised as 36 inches wide. That's actually at the knees. It tapers to about 32 inches at the shoulders, which there's no way you can shoehorn 2 people in. So mine is actually 42 inches at the shoulders. So substantially wider, longer, and taller. So you start with laying out the fuselage sides. You can see my daughter Addison helping me do that. Pretty quick and easy to do this. You just build 2 sides out like that using, like I said, 5/8 spruce stringers and T88 for the glue. Once you have both of those built, you can pop them up. And this is where I started deciding how I wanted it to be as far as width and the angles from the top and the bottom of the fuselage. So one thing I did different is it tells you to skin the fuselage and then bend it. There was reports of people cracking the spruce, so I opted to bend the spruce first and then cover it, which seemed to work out. So you can see I have a center line strike down, and that's actually both the sides sitting there. I kind of pre-bended them and let them sit for a week or so before I went with the final bend. And that's what you see there. So 2 sides bent around. Once again, the plans just show you kind of a bird's eye view of the top and bottom stringers with only a couple of measurements. You put those in and then extrapolate the rest. And then actually, I took that level and glued sandpaper to it to flatten out the bottom before skinning it. And that's the boat you end up with. The reason it's outside in my backyard in Mississippi because it was too cold in my workshop. I actually brought it into the house to let the glue cure. Thanks to my wife for not killing me. And that's what it looks like after being skinned with 3/32 mahogany plywood. I think it's 3-ply. The majority of it, the skins are mahogany. There is some birch ply for the spars and such. I just want to show that picture because I think it looks cool. It's you varnished the inside from Home Depot Aircraft Supply polyurethane spar varnish. So this is the first look at the composite process, although this wasn't my first composite layup. I just kept it because it was the fuselage. So the overall idea building the whole airplane is you have a rib on both sides, and then you plank in this case, polyurethane foam. Once you have it all planked in, you get a sanding board that's longer than both of your ribs and go to town making dust. And I made a lot of it. So this is the aft deck. The front form was based off of my height and the Dragonfly aircraft canopy that I purchased to accommodate the wider fuselage, which there that is. So in this case, the front deck built in the same manner has already been fiberglassed, and then the aft deck has not yet been fiberglassed. The foam has just been sanded to contour. There's many methods I've used to hold the foam together. I found the best to me was hot glue, actually. So my airplane has hot glue everywhere, built kind of like a RC airplane.
Can you elaborate on that? It sounds like you said you picked a canopy and then made the fuselage fit it. Is that correct? And how did you go through that process?
Kinda. So like I said, the regular KR2 being a lot skinnier, the bubble style canopy that you can purchase would not fit my substantially widened aircraft. And I'll say that the theme of my airplane overall is I didn't do anything that hadn't already been done. And of the things that have been done, I picked the lightest option. In this case, there had already been multiple flying KRs that used a canopy from a Dragonfly, because it is a wider aircraft and it's a little bit thinner, so you can flex it to fit the shape of your fuselage. So I built the fuselage just based on what I wanted it to be. And then the front form on the aft deck, I did grab the form from this canopy and then kind of squeezed it to fit on the sides. So in this picture, like I said, the front deck is already glass, the aft deck isn't. So then I set the canopy on, verified that it looked the way I wanted it to be. You can actually see I had to bring the aft end up a bit. And then I blocked in the sides with foam again and did that. So glassed it all in, one layer on the aft deck, multiple layers around the canopy, and then drew what I thought should be the canopy frame shape and took a hacksaw to it. So that's what you have there. I cut it free with a hacksaw and then added in some plywood reinforcements on both sides, and then you hinge it on one side and add some latches on the next. And then once you've done that, you can put it on the table upside down and then sand the foam on the inside and glass it to make it a stronger structure. Along with the fuselage, we'll talk about the gear. The original KR2 and KR1 had a retractable spring gear. Early on, I think in the 80s, a guy named Dan Deal made N4DD. He designed what is now the KR2 S-wing and wing skins for it, and he also designed this Scotch ply style gear, which turns out to be faster when it's properly faired in than the retract setup. So this is me showing that I had to, bolt the forms to make sure they were level, and then drill the Scotch ply and put the axles on. This was my crude, making sure it was the same length and same alignment. I'll tell you, I've got almost 100 hours in the airplane. I've never checked the alignment, and I'm still on the runway, so I guess it worked out. And there it is, and now in New Jersey, when I was stationed there, sitting on its gear with Addison, probably about 5 or 6 years old at this point. This is a funny picture to show the ingenuity of experimental aviation. That ended up being my tail spring. I got that leaf spring at a pick and pull I found in the dirt. And after telling the guy what I was using it for, he gave it to me for free. So I had to use a blowtorch and straighten it out and cut it and drill it, and it turned into that. Once again, not the standard tail wheel. The KR2 used a very short 1/4 inch 4130 steel plate with a roller blade wheel. I opted for the Aviation Products Home Builder Special you can get from Aircraft Spruce. It turns out to be very strong. I actually tend to land my airplane on the tail first, and I haven't noticed any issues with that. So that was the fuselage. Talking about the empennage, once again, I'll start with the changes. I'll just pull these pictures up real quick. Like I said, once again, it's known to be a little pitchy. So in addition to lengthening the fuselage even more, I went with a different airfoil designed by Mark Langford, kind of the most popular guy with the KR2. The KR2 tail is not symmetrical at the end, but this one is. In addition to it being fully symmetrical, he made it have more horizontal stabilizer and a little bit less elevator. So this was my first attempt at making spars. I think I hand planed these ones down, and then once again you glue the ribs on each end, fill it with foam, and glass it. I also say I changed the hinge system. Instead of 3 U-channel style elevator hinges, I went with MW3 rod bearings, and it's 5 instead of the 3 to make it stronger. This was my first time messing with foam. Taught myself how to use CAD, and I drew up these gap seals and then glued the foam in and sanded that with a broomstick with some sandpaper. And then the same on the tail, filling it in with the foam, sanding it to contour. And this is my first fiberglass layup ever. Only a layer on most of the airplane, and then in this case, the front layer overlaps to make the leading edge stronger. Fast forward a couple years, I'm back in New Jersey, finally putting the tail on. You can see me clamping it, setting the incidents, and getting it right even on both ends to make sure it's straight. Much of the same on the vertical, 2 spars filled with foam. One thing to note in here is this is actually where my radio antenna is. If you look in between the forward 2 spars, you see a little cable coming down. I actually embedded that in the foam, and then there's 2 pieces of copper foil tape on the forward spar leading down, and it seems to work out well. I have good radio reception. The other thing of note is if you look at the trailing edge of the rudder, on all trailing edge surfaces, we after laying one side of glass, you hog out the foam, and there's about a 1/2 inch of flocked cotton and epoxy to make a rock solid trailing edge. Pay no mind that I work barefoot. This is my trim tab setup. Once again, different from the plans. The plans use a cable actuated RC, not even RC, control line aircraft bell cranks. I went with a regular hinge and a Ray Allen trim servo. Originally, I built it to be serviceable and unscrewable. During finish work, I just ended up covering it up. So if I ever have to fix it, I'll have to cut it out. So let's click on the tail, the wings. Once again, not per the plans. The original KR1 and 2 used an RAF 48 airfoil that was actually derived, I believe, from the Taylor monoplane. It was a flat stall bottom. In the early 2000s, the KR group partnered with someone in the University of Illinois working on their doctorate, and he actually designed an airfoil specific to the KR2. It's a laminar style airfoil with 3 different iterations. There's a 16% cord that somewhat fits the stock spar. Then we have a 15 and an 18%. I ended up going with the 18% tapered to 15, making the center section thicker for more fuel and more strength. So in the top right, you can see me fitting up. That's actually the outer spar, hand tapered on a table saw from about 1 7/8 down to whatever that dimension is at the end. And on the bottom left, you can see me gluing it together onto the plywood with a junk Corvair cylinder to take the twist out. And in the bottom right, those are the center spars. They don't taper. The difference with mine being my main spar is actually about 2 inches taller than the stock RAF 48. And the angle of incidence is significantly different. Instead of 3 degrees, I think it's 1. That's a nice blurry picture of the stub wing layup, pretty much the same as the tail, plank it in, and fiberglass it. I did add extra layers and ribs to be able to stand on this, although I don't have to. The gear is so short, I can step right into the airplane. So there's the first time it kind of started looking like an airplane to me. This is in my house in New Jersey. What you're seeing here is me setting the dihedral of the wing. So the outer wings are bolted on through steel wing attachment fittings you can see on the ends there. You drill the top section and then you set the dihedral, which was supposed to be 5 inches. Excuse me. I actually upped it to 7 inches because some KR people told me that it didn't have a tendency to return to center. So I increased the dihedral just a bit. And if you look real hard, you can see probably 50 feet of hose tubing that's clamped to each end. I use as a water level to make sure the dihedral was set the same on both sides. Back in the garage with the airfoil templates, excuse me one sec. Sorry, I'm watching kids too. With the templates for the wing are free on the KR website. I had them printed out, and when you glue the templates on, it gives you a cord line, but also a level line to set your incidence. So this is a picture showing once I had the dihedral set, I have the rear spar set, and with it at 0, I drilled the rear wing attach points to set the washout of the wing. And this is probably my biggest foam layup at the time. Once everything was set, I started blocking in the foam. It's just foam ribs. You can look at the end where the wood rib is. That extension on the end is the modification for the S model. It's about 12 inches longer because the S model rear spar actually tapers in more, so they extended it to account for the difference in the wing sweep. And then you can see me, what I'm working on here is I decided to go with wing takes instead of the plans is to have like 15 gallons in a header tank above your feet, and I wasn't a fan of that. So with the heavier engine I chose, I had the option to go with wing tanks. It is a wet wing, which I believe shows in this picture. Yeah. So this is basically 2 layers of fiberglass on the inside all around. Instead of the aero epoxy that I used to build the majority of the airplane, this is built with vinyl ester, which one is a horrible smelling stuff, but is impervious to fuel. So this is my leak test before closing it. It's filled with car gas, making sure it didn't leak. And then there was the biggest layup I did. After closing in the fuel tank and fixing a couple leaks, it's laid up with, once again, just 1 layer of fiberglass from the forward spar aft. From the forward spar wrapped around, it's 2 layers, and then overlaps so that the leading edge is 4 layers of fiberglass. And then because I had this 1-car or 2-car garage, well, 2 doors, I'd have to hack it free, bring it out, call a friend, flip the fuselage, bolt it back up, and repeat. So that's me finishing up the bottom of the wing, much like the top was. And this is fast forward to California. I'm working on the ailerons. Once again, you draw them with a Sharpie and hack them out with a saw. And then you put in these very thin wood false spars for your aileron. And I believe, yeah, there's a picture. That's my youngest, now 5. This picture I thought was kind of cool. You can see the aileron on the top, these 2 pieces of wood, and the wing down there. This is the last 2 pieces of wood I had to put in. The cool thing is that handwriting is my dad's, and it's still on the airplane. So there's the ailerons. Before I had to fix them, but you'll notice I ran out of polyurethane, so I went with polystyrene foam. Works just as fine. The only difference is it's not impervious to fuel, so it will melt. So the areas of my wings that do have fuel is still polyurethane. This is my first attempt at, and only attempt at hot wiring. I found a 24-volt transformer plugged into the rental I have here that was powering the alarm system. I rigged up some safety wire and made a ghetto hot wire and made some wingtips. This is just 4 layers of 2-inch foam glued on the wingtip. Modified Hornier style I found that someone did on YouTube. It worked out pretty well. Quick talk about the engine. This is me at Sun and Fun, I believe 2009. Dad can confirm. I'm a hardcore Volkswagen guy, and this is him making fun of the fact that I'm about to build a Chevy. This is actually the first part I ever bought for my airplane in 2009, I believe, in Florida, before I went to pilot training. That is the engine that's on my airplane, and it runs good. Got it from a guy. It was quote-unquote running engine for $400. This is what it looks like now. Joke's on William, those cylinder jugs are Volkswagen 92 mil cylinders. Originally a 2.7 liter. With the bigger jugs and pistons, it's now a 3 liter. As people do in Volkswagens, we do the same with Chevys, Corvairs. This is an additional 5th bearing on the front to help absorb the prop loads, so we stopped cracking cranks. Here's a better look at it. The original parts on the engine are the case, the heads, the oil accessory, and the crankshaft. Everything else is new, so brand new pistons, rods, jugs. The heads are rebuilt and bored out. So this is me at Corvair College putting my engine together. There's a look at me getting all the jugs and cylinders in before the heads go on, which I believe is the next photo. Yep, that's a weird look at it all together. After it's all together, we put it on the nose to do the valve adjustment. It's just easy to rotate the engine. One of the advantages of the Corvair, it actually has hydraulic lifters, so it's just one valve adjustment, and I haven't touched it since I did that in, I believe, 2015. And the last look, oh, no, there's me priming the oil. We use the drill to prime the oil pump. That way we can pump up the lifters and make sure there's oil coming out of the push rods before running it for the first time. And there's the happy look, once again, wearing my Volkswagen hoodie, running the engine for the first time. My charging system is actually from a John Deere Dynamo tractor. Yeah, Dynamo. This direct drive on the back works pretty well. I only charge above 2,000, but it's more than enough for my day VFR flying. You could put it on the front as well. I just like this build better. And there it is on the airplane with all the baffling on. Like I said, 3 liter Corvair, so it's 120 horsepower, which is, I want to say, double what the KR2 used. So it helps with the heavier, bigger, wider airplane. Real quick through the instruments and such, all of my controls were built by hand from flat stock. Slightly modified elevator control system. I have a couple push rods in there to help me. I can actually counterbalance my elevator, although I don't have it on there, and I've taken it to 220 without any flutter, so I think we're good. Another cool thing is since I made it wider, my rudder pedals were too small, so I taught myself how to TIG weld, and TIG welded the rudder pedals and made a dual stick system. There it is, all finished up and painted blue. You'll learn that blue is my favorite color. It's all over the airplane. There's my rudder pedals and brake system. I opted for nylon blocks for the rudder pedals instead of the hinge system that the plans call for. A little squeaky, but works well. Once again, straying from the plans, instead of a canvas sling seat, I built a composite seat to accommodate my taller self to make the airplane not have to be taller. So same construction methods as before, sandwich it, sand it, add some ribs, and it just hangs on the spars. And I've had two 200-pound adults in there pulling 3Gs with no issue. And there's a kind of the final look. The seat backs, instead of being a 1/4-inch plywood like the plans call for, this is just a 1/4 inch of foam with a layer of fiberglass on each end, and it holds up pretty well. And it's easy to pull out for maintenance. Seat belts courtesy of my father. As a quick look at the instrument panel, I was going to go with a basic VFR steam gauge, but one day on eBay, I found these two Dynons for $3,000, so I jumped the chance. So I have a D100, a D120 with full engine monitoring, an iFly 740. I opted for the Stratus ESG for ADS-B out, and then I have a Stratix for ADS-B in on my iFly. I do have that airfield ratio gauge was removed. Now I have a wideband airfield ratio gauge for leaning, and then a Flightcom 760 for comms. Just a quick shot of the ELT to bring up one point for those who don't know. This is a 406 ELT with the antenna on the inside since it's composite. One thing I learned during my airworthiness inspection is I originally had my transponder antenna sitting above it, and for some reason with a 406, the transponder transmissions were setting off my ELT. So if you're building, make sure your transponder antenna is far enough away from your ELT or it will set it off. Finishing stages, this is the 9% done, 9% to go. This is right after I moved to California. I put it together thinking I was almost done. It would take a couple more years before that. First being the one part I actually bought that was supposed to be ready to go, I had to heavily modify to fit. The mold that was pulled off of this cowling for a KR2 with a Corvair had a different size firewall. So I had to completely redo the front by hand using pour foam to clear the starter. I had to add a inlet on the bottom to clear my carburetor, and in the end I also had to add a bubble on the top to clear my distributor. So here's the ugly part of it. You start using a micro and epoxy slurry as a filler, kind of like Bondo, but substantially lighter, and you just slather it all over the airplane and get intimately familiar with sanding. I can tell you every grit I've used on this airplane, and I try not to think about it. So there's the body work. Now that the aft deck's glued on a little bit more, like I said, you can see it's slurried up with micro, and then you sand it down to just catch all the imperfections, all the pinholes. These 3 slides represent a couple years, even though I'm going to talk for like 30 seconds. There's the first time it was all one color. That's after micro, then some more filler, then some more sanding, and this is a smooth prime to fill pinholes, and it's a UV protector that was rolled on with a paint roller and then sanded some more to the point where I was able to do my first attempt at spray paint. This is a polyurethane primer surfacer that's sprayed on, once again, just to fill all the little imperfections and get prepped for paint. That was sanded all the way up to, I want to say, 600 grit and prep for paint, which that was my first paint job there. The airplane is pearl white with a pearl blue two-tone, a base coat, clear coat that I taught myself how to do on YouTube. Eastwood.com is what I use. They had a really nice series on how to paint, and I just watched it and watched it and watched it, and made a paint booth. tarp in the garage with a nice compressor, a lot of taping, and a lot of prep work. Turned out that. It looks pretty good, I think, for a garage paint job. But because I'm a glutton for punishment, I decided to cut the clear coat. Here is a technique, once again, I learned on YouTube. I drew all over my airplane with a Sharpie, and then I sanded my clear coat 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 grit, and then buffed it to look like that. So that's the final picture of my airplane before I got the airworthiness inspection done in the first flight. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm sure some of you have seen me around at the airport. If you see me, stop me, ask me for a flight. I'll shamelessly ask you how much you weigh, and I'll take you flying. So thank you all for listening, and I'm opening it up to any questions.
Hey, Chris, I'll lead off with the first one. Did you track the number of hours that you have in this project?
Yeah, first very religiously with a timer on my my toolbox. I got a little loose in the end, but best estimate is around 1,600 hours over 8 years. 8 years, 7 deployments, 2 kids, 4 houses, a theft in the middle. My airplane was stolen and returned to me.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I remember. That was the moving. That was the trailer fiasco, wasn't it?
Moving to California. That was fun.
Rob, what about performance numbers?
Oh yeah. Sorry. With down low, if I'm checking the runway to see if it's clear, I can probably sustain about 175 miles an hour. I flight plan at anywhere between 7 to 11,000 feet, about 5.5 gallons an hour at 160 miles an hour with no wheel pants. And it stalls 57 miles an hour. I do have a massive belly board speed brake on the bottom of it that I didn't really talk about. It's actuated by the buttons on my control stick. It's a linear actuator with a big 9-inch by 36-inch aluminum plate under this belly that works quite well.
Pretty impressive.
Oh, and I guess I'd say figures. It came out at 750 pounds, which is very typical for Corvair KR, and I've flown it all the way up to 1,250 pounds out of Tahoe with a 7,500 foot density altitude.
How many hours?
I note that. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, it was how many hours?
Yes.
First flight was December 10th, and as of yesterday's flight, 92 hours. I like flying.
And I understand
Chris,
you and your dad are going to fly it to Oshkosh. Is that still the plan?
Yes, I did all the testing. The last thing I guess I didn't really talk about was the CG range on the airplane. The advertised CG range isn't really safe. They say don't use the last aft 2 inches. But with the goal of flying to Oshkosh, I did a lot of flight testing, flying with rocks and shifting CGs. So unlike any other KR2 that I know of, I can fly myself and my dad in 25 gallons and be in the tested range.
Oh, he won't mind going on a diet. No problem at all.
We both are. We got to each lose 10 pounds.
That's a lot of gas.
I can hold a little over 30 gallons.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You failed to
You said
tell them
you-
how well I flew it, Chris.
Oh, yeah. I guess I was going to talk about that. So like I said, the KR2 was known to be very pitchy. And even though mine's longer with a different tail, the couple of you that have flown with me and other people, the second I give them the stick, there's a very pronounced PIO. I had it on my first flight. It's you just got to think about it. It's heavy in the ailerons, but just think about changing altitudes. I honestly, on cross countries, I control the altitude with my feet. I just move 1 foot forward or back to change the altitude.
Did you get any transition training in any type of aircraft before you took your first flight?
No. I honestly only had 6 hours of table time in the Interstate Cadet from Dan and Lee from Genie's. I did fly the Zenith, the 601, and honestly, it's very similar. So I had flown something that was similar to that. And then my chase plane that flew with me on my first flight, he owned a KR. He was chasing me with his Whitman tailwind, talking in my ear and keeping me safe on the first flight. So that was very, very helpful.
And he should add that your chase pilot is a Reno racer, right?
He is Justin Phillips. He's a Reno racer. He's got a Cassett, a shoestring, 140, and a tailwind. He's a single pilot.
Single pilot as
You
in,
meant-
as in he doesn't have a family anymore.
Yeah. Yes. Very nice guy. Very. He taught me a lot.
You mentioned that you increased the dihedral. How's the stability and roll?
It's nice. I'd have to say if I start a roll, it'll still keep rolling, but I think it's attributed to the fact that my dual stick setup has a good amount of friction in it. In between the welded parts, excuse me, and the stick, I have 2 pieces of nylon for it to rub on. Because of that, the stick just stays where you put it. So I don't even have any tabs on the ailerons to trim it. I just, wherever the stick is, I just let go and it stays, which is nice for like fuel imbalances. I just move it a little bit more and it stays level.
Sure, right. Okay, thanks.
So what's your range on this?
30 gallons at 5.5 gallons an hour. And I think it's 900 miles. I'd have to do the math real quick. I haven't even done economy cruise. I don't pull the throttle back. When I'm up there, I'm at full throttle, leaned out to 5.5 to 6 gallons an hour. So it's honestly longer than your bladder can handle.
One other thing that's kind of interesting, he represented this was a KR2S. What does your registration say?
According to the
Where
FAA,
in this?
KR-25, because I have bad handwriting.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
That's
what are you
amazing
building
job
now?
on this thing. Did you teach yourself to do the modifications, or have you had some formal training?
I'd have to say 99% of this airplane was self-taught. And like I said before, every modification was already flight proven because I didn't want to do anything that hadn't flown before. So like the speed brake, I knew of 4 different designs. I looked at what looked like the lightest one and did that. But I had no experience woodworking, 0 composite. The only experience I really had, I used to be a maintainer in the military, so I was very confident with the electrical and the building of the engine. But most of it was Google, YouTube, and the KR net.
Can you trim this for level flight, and does it stay trimmed?
Yeah, I did have to add a trim tab. I think I could have gone with a little bit more incidence on the tail, but with the passenger and a lot of fuel, it is negatively stable. It'll go up until you stall or down until you die. But when it's trimmed, it trims off very nice. And like I said, it's such a small airplane that I can let go and either move a leg forward or aft to modify if it's climbing or not. And I can even move my head left and right to make it turn.
Yeah, I know all about that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what's next?
Yeah,
I've already completed a tail kit for a Panther. I started building that before I finished this. I'm a serial builder, so I am building a Panther, probably with the Corvair, just for something myself to be able to rip around in. And then the 3rd and 4th airplane still up in the air.
And when are you moving to the air park?
2 years from now, my family will be moving up, and then shortly after, I'll be retiring and moving up. It should be the winter of 23.
I'm not sure, Mike, but that sounds like it's a little late in our plans to get him
I
into the
was already
chapter
going there,
leadership.
Jerry. We'll figure something out.
That was amazing, amazing build. Just impressive and impressive to see your life around the pictures. It was really neat.
Yeah, honestly, I built this a couple days ago, and it was really cool to see the pictures and my kids. You know, that first picture of my daughter, she's now 12, going to be in 7th grade in a couple of months.
Yeah.
It's been a journey. 7 deployments, a couple kids, a lot of moves, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of sanding. Don't build a composite airplane.
Yeah, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
I don't know that I'd change much on this airplane. Maybe, like I said, I probably would have made my tail adjustable to be able to tweak in the incidence on that, like some have. But the idea was light, simple, and fast. The honest answer, if I were to do it again, I wouldn't have built this first. Building from plans and scratch is a lot of work and a lot of research. I mean, I say it was 1,600 hours of build time. That doesn't count the hours and hours and hours online, you know, buying parts. Everything is from spruce. I had to, you know, piecemeal parts, and it was a lot of work. And then, you know, I built my Panther tail kit in like 40 hours in like a couple weeks. It was just stupid simple. So know what you're getting into if you're going to build from plans.
I think plans built 1,600 hours pretty impressive. I'd be curious to know if anyone's done it any faster than that in the KR community.
Yeah, like I said, that might be a loose number, and that's not counting research or anything like that. But I mean, I think that's what they call the average. Like Mark Langford, I think, spent almost 3,000 hours overthinking it and building it, and he didn't even paint it.
Awesome. Any other last questions?
Yeah, you're going to bring it up here for our air venture thing?
Yeah, I've actually already been to Independence a couple times with it, if you haven't seen me. But like I said, if you do see me, stop me. I will give you a ride after I ask you shamelessly how much you weigh. But
yeah, that won't include me. I'm too heavy.
I've taken up to 230-pound passengers, and I'm myself currently 200, which is a lot for a KR, but it flew. I will be up there right before AirVenture starts to pick up Dad and start flying east.
And then you'll be back for our fly-in, right?
Yeah, it's a short 3-hour hop for me, so I'm there as much as I can. I took a day off from work and flew up to have lunch with Dad once.
Awesome.
I actually flew it down to Chino last weekend to where the KR was designed, and met with Steve Glover, the current owner of the KR plans, and had a nice chat and picked up some parts and looked at some cool stuff.
Okay, any other questions before we free him up and let him go back to his working life?
Well, thanks,
thanks,
Chris, for making it easy on Dad to find a program. And it is a nice flying airplane, guys. Don't miss out on a chance to get a ride. Good and fast and pretty.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Chris. That was a awesome presentation, and I certainly look forward to seeing the plane in person. You know, one of these times when it shows up here. And just take care of your dad on the round trip to Oshkosh and back.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Like I said, I will give you a ride. That's all I want to do with this thing is just share aviation with people. The only thing I ask is you sign my guest book.
All right. Okay, everybody. We'll call it a wrap for our May meeting. And as usual, and I've been delinquent, I did record this, and so we'll take Chris's presentation and we'll have it up on the website sooner or later. And I'm a meeting or so behind, but we will make that happen. And Chris, I probably forgot to tell you that it was being recorded, but I hope you didn't mind.
Oh, not at all.
Okay, everyone. Well, we will not be meeting in June. I'd like to get everyone who can to volunteer for Young Eagles, whether you're instructional, ground support, pilot, whatever. If you can make yourself available that day, we'd really appreciate your help. And with that, everyone have a great weekend. If you have a chance, go out and fly safe, and we'll be talking to everybody soon then. Thank you.